Hello, welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect podcast. I'm here with a very special guest today, Isabel. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so my name is Isabel. I'm Isabel's Played on Insta, and Jenny and I started off as Instagram friends, became real life friends once we moved to the city. But we're both just like Jenny, I'm all about, food freedom, balanced living, listening to your body, and just leading like a truly balanced lifestyle without food rules, without any sort of diet culture. So I feel like we really bonded over that. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, yay. Thank you so much. And I love Instagram for that. And that it's kind of enabled me to build up this community of people like yourself and just, have that general foundation of common interest and common kind of goals and ideas about life. But then, there's also so much more to unpack and peel back beyond Instagram when you can meet in person. And I love that.
Yeah. It's like we unlocked like a new level.
Yeah, exactly. We're hanging out in my apartment now when we're just following each other and DMing each other for so long.
Exactly.
I love that.
Same.
So to start my episodes with my guests, I love to start with like a rosebud thorn moment. So something good that's been happening lately. Thorn can be something that's you're struggling with, that's a challenge lately. And then the bud is something you're kind of growing and learning from, developing on, anything like that.
I feel like my rose and bud are one, and we were just talking about this, but I just signed with my agent, and I'm really excited about how that's going to progress and like what new opportunities it'll like lead me to. So I'm definitely excited about that. And I include that as bud because it's still like blossoming. Right. I think for my thorn, maybe just balancing. I feel like balancing screen time, especially now that I'm doing content full time, and like, I think I need
saying that for real. That's so cool.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it now. But I feel like balancing screen time, like not being on my phone first thing in the morning / last thing at night / all the in between. So I need to work on that.
Emails,
exactly. Anytime my phone buzzes, I'm like, I don't want that. But
yeah, I totally relate. And this week for sure, it's just I've had a lot of work, which I think would be my rose. Like I'm happy that I feel a lot more like settled into my position. I feel really heard by my bosses and the people I'm working with day to day. They really like the work I'm presenting, and I'm proud of the work that I'm presenting as well. Yay. So it's kind of, I guess, rose and thorn in a way, just because managing my time has been difficult, and kind of working from home has also kind of an added challenge on top of that for me. While there's always pros and cons, I feel like working from home, working from an office, like there's always going to be things you can nitpick about both. And while I love the flexibility of being able to get up and just go to my table and not have to commute anywhere, it's definitely sometimes a little lonely and just, I don't know, just by myself all day. So it's I guess a mixture of rose and thorn. So feeling good with my work, and I love what I'm doing. And, but definitely just working on time managing. And I also want to work on my content and, maintain that consistency as much as I can, but not put too much pressure on it. So,
and I feel like that's hard when you're working another full-time job, like to balance the two, even just like make time to do the other one as much as you want to. So it's hard. I've been there.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of other creators who kind of have been in similar situations, or maybe they used to work a full-time job and now they've gone more into just creation as their full-time. And I'm just curious, like how they managed it, how they scheduled their time, because that's like what I'm really struggling with, and just kind of making a routine. Certain days you do this, certain days you do that. Because right now I feel like as much as it's good, I'm like very in the moment, but other times I don't like that, because then it's kind of like, well, what do I do today other than work, So
I feel like it is going to be like an ebb and flow of day to day kind of thing too. Until you maybe find a groove, which obviously takes time, but you're not alone.
And, but I've also been loving my YouTube channel as well. And Isabel recently added some more to her YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out after this podcast.
Inspired by Jenny.
Oh, thanks. What was kind of your desire to like start that? And like, what are you excited about, branching out to that platform?
Well, I think just having longer form content is really fun, because I feel like your personality really gets to come out more, even just like through talking to the camera for like 5 seconds. Like that's different than Instagram and TikTok. I think I was drawn to it because of my change in job situation where I was like, okay, I have all this extra time now that I'm not doing that job. I may as well like lean into it. Like I was making videos and posting them when I was 10. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll just try it now when I actually have a life to share. That's not like, my 5th grade, whatever I was doing then. But yeah, I think those were the 2 things that I was like, if not now, when I have the ability, like just try it.
Yeah. No, it is the one thing that it takes more time for sure. Like, I mean, that being said, I feel like I have edited reels and TikToks for so long sometimes though. Like I'll just,
it takes
nitpicking, but the YouTube is definitely more of like a time commitment, but I feel like the outcome is so worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's fun. Like it's fun to edit them.
Exactly.
It's different from reels.
Yeah. So should we dive into our questions?
Yes.
I did a little poll on my stories a couple weeks ago, honestly, at this point. We're kind of delayed in the recording, but we have some questions for me and Isabel, just a lot of them around like being in your 20s, growing up, also some recovery stuff. So we'll dive into that. I like this question. How to deal with the anxiety that comes with change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is a good question for both of us for where we are in life.
Yeah.
I've obviously been doing a lot of thinking about this. And I think the first thing is for me, just in general, speaking to myself is huge. Like how I talk to myself is really powerful in like my day to day. So when I'm going through a change or I know a change is coming, reminding myself that it's temporary, this is a season. I feel like that just really grounds me, because if I talk in a way of like, I don't know, I'm freaking out, like this is never I have no control. Like when is this going to end? Obviously my brain is going to go into panic mode. But if I just change gears a bit and I'm like, this is how it is now. That doesn't mean this is how it's going to be forever. Like this will pass, just like everything passes. Yep. You're okay. And I feel like that really does a number on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely try to implement that mindset as well, of just reminding myself that things pass, emotions pass, situations pass, like nothing is a constant for the rest of your life. And it's, it's just not built that way, and things will come and go. So reminding myself of that definitely helps through moments. And I think we'll probably talk about this a lot later throughout the questions, but having outlets and like having places you can go to that are healthy for you and that are helpful for you. And for me, that's been like journaling, having conversations, going outside, like any moment that I notice I'm so caught up in overthinking the change that's happening, or fearful of the future, or worrying about things that genuinely are just out of my control, then having these outlets and kind of having like a bank of options of things to do, so that I'm not just kind of sitting there spiraling, because I've definitely done my fair share of that, and it's not fun at all. And it doesn't help you kind of move forward with the change and grow through the change, because you're just so stuck in either thinking about the future, or maybe you're thinking about the past, and you're anywhere but the present moment. And so for me, outlets like journaling, talking, going outside, like they just help me like ground in the moment. So I was lean on those.
Yeah. I mean, that just makes me think. I was talking to my mom, like when all this job change was going on, and obviously freaking out because I was like venting to her and like letting out all of the thoughts and emotions. And she said something that like kind of stuck with me. And now I kind of like reframed that into like a little journaling thing sometimes that I do. I'm not journaling every morning, but when I need to, I kind of turn to this. But it's like, what is this going to teach me, or what is this teaching me now? Like, how am I going to grow in this? And like, that's not always helpful to reference, because sometimes I'm like, I don't care about that. I just need to like release these emotions. Like, I'm not trying to grow. But then when you are in the right mindset for that, it can be really helpful to be like, okay, I'm, all this is happening now, but it's allowing me to do this, or it's like allowing me to practice patience or resilience or insert whatever.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been helpful too, to just shift your perspective on it.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think getting to that place, while it may not happen in the moment, it may take a few days later.
Yeah.
That's the key part. And I feel like for me, I would sometimes get so caught up in feeling sad or anxious or, worried, that I wouldn't ever think that I would get to that point. I'd be, and then I would never get to that point or maybe it would just take so much longer and be just a lot more of a challenging process to get there. But now I'm able to understand, like, I will get there. It will pass, like we were saying before. So, you will get to a place where you'll be able to reflect on it and reframe your perspectives. And I love that little journal prompt. Honestly, might take it myself. So because just being able to take a unfortunate situation or a scary situation or even just a big change in life and see how you can grow from it and learn from it is like, it's not easy, but it's definitely like the first step.
And pointing that out, like how you're changing or growing or potentially changing and growing, I feel like just the awareness of that makes it easier. Just knowing that.
Yeah, exactly. This kind of reminds me of I feel like I've seen so many trends and reels of like changing your mindset on, oh, I have to clean my house instead. And then you reframe it to like, I get to do this. I get to clean my house, or I have to go work out. I get to move my body.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've overlooked that a lot of times and just being like, oh, it's just a word change. But really, when you think about it like deeply, you know, just embodying that mindset shift is really, really helpful in thinking that you're getting to do these things. You have control over the things you can control, and that, you know, it's not, you know, all out of your control.
No, I love that. I've seen those TikToks too. And I always save. Like I feel so positive after that. I'm like, you're right. I do get to go to the grocery store.
Exactly. Romanticize it all.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, should we move to the next question?
Let's do it.
How would you cope, or how did you cope with like weight gain, body changing throughout your own recovery?
First and foremost, releasing the emotion, crying it out, not really like forcing myself to keep those emotions bottled up, because I feel like that release is just huge. Like what you were talking about, outlets, like I journaled so much. I talked to my mom a lot. I cried a lot, and just really allowing for those emotions to be there, because you are grieving in that moment. You're grieving not just the physical body that you're, you know, attached to then, but also everything that comes with that, like whatever thoughts your disordered brain have with that body, like whether it's you're liked in this body or I'm worthy in this body, whatever it is, you're grieving, quote, the loss of all that too. So I feel like just allowing those emotions to be there and pass is really helpful. Like that was huge for me. I'm sure it was for you too.
Yeah, me too. My therapist helped me a lot of just eliminating the judgment and letting the thoughts come. Cause I feel like once I started recovery, I kind of had this expectation of, oh, I'm not going to judge myself for gaining weight. I'm not going to judge myself for eating these foods because I'm in recovery. But no, it doesn't mean the judgments just go away overnight. Yeah. So making that step towards recovery, I was choosing to not align with those judgments like I was before. And when I decided when I was not in recovery and kind of living by my eating disorder, like those judgments dictated my life. So when I decided actively to push against those, along with that comes a time where they're still there and they're very active and they're very loud and they're very present, but you kind of just have to push against them and feel that discomfort. And reminding myself of that really helps, especially with seeing physical changes, experiencing and feeling physical changes as I was gaining weight and my body was balancing itself out. Just remembering that they're going to be there, the unhelpful thoughts, but I don't need to act on them, nor should I. And I don't want to, because I know where that took me and I don't want to go back there, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like the strength to like not act on those or not let them run your life comes, or for me at least, it came with building my own self-worth separate from body. And like for me, that looked like, I mentioned journaling. I was writing affirmations every single day, and they were not all related to body. Some of them were, some of them weren't, most of them weren't, but I did not believe them at the time that I was writing them at all. I was like, this is like stupid, whatever. But the consistency of doing that while also like, you know, really trying to shift my mindset and really surround myself by similar resources, like, you know, people that have gone through it before just on socials, all of that paired together kind of did help build up my self-worth and my confidence in myself, so that when those thoughts came up that you were talking about, those judgments, it's easier to be like, no, I don't need to listen to that because I actually know my worth or like I'm getting to know my worth in a different way. So yeah, I feel like that also comes with time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so important. I relate to the having multiple affirmations and not believing any of them. I had a mirror in my old bedroom that I did just consistently put up sticky notes. I had seen girls on Instagram do that and say that it had helped them. And I was like, okay, well, at this point, I'm going to try anything just to feel better and work through recovery. And I would write them, and I just like didn't believe any of them. But it was the action of taking that step and deciding to write them. You know, I didn't do that before. So at least that's one small step, even if you don't feel it or believe it all. it's still kind of a step in the recovery direction.
Yeah.
I had another point, and on gaining weight. One way that I helped myself kind of accept it was leaning again also into like feel the fear and do it anyway. And for me, as I just leaned into that, faced my fear foods, allowed my body to just gain the weight it needed, listen to my hunger cues, and I just kind of did everything that my body needed and like tried my best not to focus on my weight. Eventually, over time, I realized like with that weight gain came so much freedom and like so many friendships and relationships and new experiences that I wouldn't have ever experienced if I was still so scared about gaining weight. And so once I kind of got to that point, and that definitely comes with time, like that didn't happen at the beginning of my recovery at all. I think that's just enabled me to now be in a place of be like, I don't want to lose weight because I don't want to lose all of that great stuff that I've added to my life now.
Right.
So that's like I said, that's a point further down the line. At least it took a while for me to get there, but that's how I've been able to really just reframe any thoughts that still come up today about judgments about my body and its size and how much I weigh and stuff like that. I can remind myself and be like, well, I wouldn't have gotten here. I wouldn't have met this person. I wouldn't have had that experience if I was still so adamant on not gaining any weight.
Right. Like what else are you gaining on besides the weight?
Right.
Like in life. I love that. And I feel like going along with that too, one of the biggest fears for me was like, well, I'm not going to be loved or liked if my body changes because I'm, this is my identity and this is who I am and this is why I have friends and whatever. And then once the body changes happened, acknowledging like, okay, my friends are still here. My family's still here.
Yep.
I'm still loved. I still like all these beliefs that I had before were disproved, right? That's a word.
Yeah.
Disproved.
Yep. All proven wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. All those beliefs were proven wrong. And that was just like more fuel and motivation to be like, okay, well, what else isn't true? If like I gained this weight, my body changed and all these things didn't happen. And I gained memories, experiences, friends, relationships. What else do I need to like challenge here?
Yeah. I feel like that's just like a big overarching thing in recovery that does take time, but the way to kind of get through and make it to the next step is to just sit with that discomfort of doing whatever against your eating disorder or against that diet culture voice in your head. But then eventually you'll get to the point where you've realized, oh, actually my life is better, or I'm happier because I've pushed against that and I don't follow that rule anymore. And so, it's kind of just like checking off one by one slowly. And with each one, I know I've noticed like building so much self-confidence and self-trust with myself that like I can go a day 100% by myself, not seeing anyone, and I can eat what I need. I can move my body how it feels good. I can drink the water that I need because like I trust myself that I will do that. And I've proven to myself that nothing will happen if I eat whatever I'm craving in a day and I'm by myself and no one's around me. That was a big thing for me. I think just being alone and doing those things for myself. And I just was so fearful. I feel like I needed a justification to go out to eat. I
like
needed someone's with me. It's a special occasion. I can eat this food. But a big part of my recovery is just like been doing those things alone and building that trust and that confidence in myself that like I can deal with these uncomfortable things. I don't need to lean on everyone around me. I don't need to have some sort of justification for these things. So while it's still important to lean on your support when you need it, I think at the end of the day, you're the only one recovering. So if you aren't recovering, like no one can force you into that because it's all in your own brain and your own body.
That's only like harming yourself.
Right.
Yeah. I love that though, that you shared that. I didn't know that.
You're good to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Cool. So this next question talks on our college years, which wasn't too long ago.
No.
But it says, how do you balance socializing in college and going out while in recovery and dealing with ED thoughts? What was your experience with that?
Well, we should say that COVID was a big part of our college lives.
Yes.
So going out was already impacted majorly. But then on top of that, I feel like I wasn't like in the depths of it, like the darkest part of my eating disorder. I wasn't really going out. I was super isolating. Like I cut off my friendships. I'm thinking of when I was at UNC because that's where it started for me. I like cut out my friendships. I wasn't even like friends with my roommate, which is somehow really hard. Like I was friends with her and then I stopped So I definitely like isolate a lot. And then when I went to BC, I feel like it shifted there. But yeah, I feel like you probably relate to with the COVID situation.
Yeah, it was very disrupted. I had, you had your first year and second year? No, you had your freshman year.
I had freshman year. I went home. It was during my junior year.
During your junior year. Okay, yeah. So during my freshman year, we went home. So I had like my first freshman semester going out. You know, I actually studied abroad in Rome. So I was going out in the city and traveling around Europe. And then, yeah, I kind of cut everything off that spring. So I didn't really like partake in like the going out culture, I guess. That's, I guess, similar to you, other than maybe those months I was in Rome and then the 6 weeks before March 2020. So, but I guess as far as like dealing with eating disorder thoughts, I only really started my recovery like after I was more going out and in that scene.
Yeah.
But I do vividly remember so many moments of actively struggling with my eating disorder and, you know, adhering and listening to it and feeling like I had to be guided by it. And it really just did dictate my life at that point. And end of high school into college was kind of when it was really ramping up and developing. So I don't really have much constructive, like helpful advice, I guess, because I was sucked in and I was consumed by it and really, unfortunately, was engaging in unhealthy behaviors. But I guess coming out of that, once I started recovery in 2021, like a year and a bit later, there's been some moments where I've gone out and socialized. And I think the major thing for me was taking time to not go out and not do those things. And I just wanted to make sure that I was in a place where I could be in a social situation and not be persuaded or swayed. I think there was one night I went out pretty early on in my recovery. And while I know I wanted to recover, I just was so anxious and had a panic attack later in the night and just like really couldn't handle it because my eating disorder thoughts were incredibly loud. You know, I had just started and embarked on this journey and I was trying so hard to be fun and social on the outside and drink and, you know, enjoy the snacks. But like internally, I was just like crumbling and I couldn't figure out what voice to listen to, what thing to do, what food to eat, what not to eat, what drink to drink, what not to drink. And I think that night I just felt miserable and horrible. And it really made me sad because all my other friends at that time, like COVID was just clearing up. Everyone was going out again. And I was like, why can't I have fun like them? Like, why do I feel so horrible after tonight? And they like had fun. So I think that was a big point for me of realizing that I just have to take this on my own journey. I have to do it my own way. I can't compare how much I go out and how much I socialize to my friends because we're not in the same journey. And that helped me a lot. And then I could build, like we were saying, build that trust, build that confidence in myself so that I later and like now I can go out and I know I can eat the food and I can enjoy the drinks and nothing bad is going to happen because earlier on, I couldn't rationalize that it was okay to do those things. And it's not like my body and everything is going to change and be horrible forever. Like it would literally jump to those extremes.
Yeah. It was like one of those too much too soon things.
Yeah.
So I definitely relate to that. And I feel like this is an interesting point that just came up in my mind. It's not directly related to like when I was in recovery, but before when I was like, so not when I was at UNC, but when I was at BC before recovery, before COVID.
Okay. Different chapters.
Yeah. So if you can just picture, I used alcohol as like a major crutch and like would do the most to try and cover up a lot of feelings, to suppress a lot of feelings. I think also to allow myself to eat certain foods that I would not have allowed myself to eat when I was sober. And so that was actually like a substantial part of my like journey, I guess, before recovery. But then once I started recovery my senior year, also 2021, I totally I 180'd that and I did not go out. I didn't even have a desire, honestly. Like that wasn't really there for me. Yeah, I was sad that like I wasn't able to go and hang out with my friends and do some of these activities, but I also didn't want to because I was so consumed with like just everything that was going on in recovery. Like there's a lot, obviously. So that desire wasn't honestly there for me. But then when I did start going out, it was rocky It was rocky.
It's going to be a transition period for sure.
And I think I also relate to the too much too soon, because there were lots of nights where it was like, well, what did I do? Like these, old thoughts coming back up. And that's where like the outlets come into play, and getting out of the environment was really helpful for me. Like if I'm not talking about the actual night of, but like the next day or the next morning when I went out, getting out of my apartment was really helpful, rather than just waking up and like being like, oh my God, what did I do? And like letting those thoughts kind of spiral, being like, okay, I'm just going to remove myself from the situation, completely go to a new environment. And I don't know, it helps me disconnect.
Right.
So I feel like that was really helpful for me. But yeah, it was definitely an ebb and flow kind of thing, sure. Like learning.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I relate a lot to the alcohol use, and I think a lot of early college students like definitely use alcohol in different ways, and it can become such an easy crutch for like confidence and feeling good about yourself. And, in my experience, sounds like our experience, it kind of helped fuel our eating disorder, and it allowed us to do things without it kind of being like, quote unquote, the real you. It's like the drunk version of you, the more fun, more confident. And so that was something I also had to maneuver throughout recovery. Like throughout my eating disorder, like alcohol and drinks and cocktails kind of became like a fear food.
Yeah.
Just due to like the ingredients and stuff like that, and calories, all that stuff. So then as I was coming out, I was kind of battling both sides of the girl who used to overdo it to feel some certain way and numb the insecurities. And then the other side of the girl who's like, doesn't want to touch it at all. And it's quote unquote bad for her and it's bad for you. So, and I feel like I'm still figuring out like my relationship with alcohol. And I know it kind of triggers my anxiety now more than anything. So definitely just an ongoing journey for sure.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I feel like now, especially the last couple of months, I've really like dialed back. I haven't felt the draw to drink as much, not because of any like body related thoughts, just like in general, my relationship with it. So it is interesting. I feel like it's an ebb and flow, like for like throughout your life.
I also totally relate to the outlets and kind of having those, a bank of those and leaning on those and getting out your apartment. I feel like I would talk to people and try to make plans the next day and try to do something nice for myself, just because I don't know, they can be really intense moments when alcohol and eating disorder thoughts and recovery is all coming into one, and or even just socializing, not necessarily having alcohol. Just being around a lot of other people. Maybe there's loud music. Like even to this day, like I still have to implement those things. If I'm not drinking a single drop of alcohol, like I can still get very overstimulated and very overwhelmed, and kind of have to like take the next morning and like do intentional things to help myself feel better. And that's just, that all comes with time and learning how to self-care and self-soothe.
Yeah. And I think also just going back to what you said about like, just like not going out as much, I feel like the pressure in college or post-college too, to go out twice a week or however many times a week, is like very strong. Like you feel a pressure to do it even when you don't want to. And like, I remember so many times being like, oh, like getting myself out of bed to get ready to go out.
Right.
And it's like, looking back on that now, I understand why I felt that way, but like, I just didn't need to, I just did not need to go out if I didn't want to. So I feel like, especially in college, if you're struggling with the balancing recovery and going out, like reducing that pressure by taking it off yourself and allowing yourself to just, spend the night in your bed if that's what you need, allowing that and not like going back and forth in your head about it, just being like, no, actually, I need that. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to actually let myself do this.
And I think something I wish I knew in college as well was just to really think about the people like in my circles and who I was hanging out with.
Yeah.
Because I know that I had a lot of friends that like we only really bonded about going out, and that was all we really could do together. We never hung out. We never did homework together. It was just like, we just go to bars and drink together, and it's fun. And they're super fun to be around. But I think my biggest piece of advice for my like younger self in college is to just really think about where I'm putting my energy and into what people and what am I receiving back and stuff, and not in like a narcissistic way of like you have to always be receiving something in relationships, but it's like a give and take, like any friendship, romantic relationship, it has to be a give and take. You can't just constantly be giving and giving, otherwise you're just going to get drained out. And I think I definitely experienced that. And then throughout recovery, I built up a more substantial foundation of what I want in a friendship and what serves me in a friendship. And it turns out a lot of my freshman year friends didn't fulfill those things. Yeah. So, which is fine, but I definitely, I would tell myself that now as looking down on my younger self, just being like, hey, be intentional with where you put your energy. Yeah. And if they're making you feel good, genuinely filling your cup, because that's something that will continue on for the rest of your life as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. That makes me think of like what's the saying? It's like who you surround yourself with, you become, something like that.
Oh yeah.
Like feeding off the energy of the people around you, and like thinking back to all the years of college and even high school, like who I was surrounding myself with was really indicative of how I was feeling about myself and like what I thought I was like worthy of, I think, honestly. Like looking back to certain seasons of my life, I'm like, I was just in a very different place. And that's why I was surrounded by these certain types of people that maybe I don't align with now that I do have this different mindset, different view of myself, different confidence and stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel like we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Friendships
definitely not
changing.
answering the question anymore.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like it's so important because it's not really necessarily related to recovery specifically, but it's so ingrained and connected. And just whether you go through recovery, any sort of self-discovery journey, healing journey, like a lot of it is your relationships and who you hang out with. And for me, it took a while for me to accept that those things change. Like throughout high school and my younger years, it was like, well, these are my friends and they're going to stay my friends forever and ever. Yeah. But like, no. And, they're not supposed to be your friends forever and ever. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's something.
Back to our first question of dealing with change.
Yeah, exactly. It's all connected.
Yeah.
Move on. I kind of like this one about feeling behind in your 20s.
Yes.
What would you say on this topic of maybe feeling behind in your 20s, just experiencing our early 20s, maybe being in New York City, anything like that?
Yeah. I feel like I just saw a TikTok kind of recently about this, basically for any people that know the show Friends or like the show Friends. The caption was, why are you freaking out or feel like you're behind? You're only on season 1 of Friends. Because it was literally our age group, like 24, 25. That's what she was talking about. And I'm like, you're right. We're on season 1. Like I don't need to be anywhere but here. And that's okay. And like, this is what being 24 is like. Like some people are doing X, Y, and Z, and some people are doing something totally different. And that's normal. I just really like that TikTok.
It just helps. Yeah. No, and even finding those little funny kind of seemingly insignificant things, like they can really resonate. And if it helps you and if it helps you reframe your mindset, who cares if other people think it's stupid or silly? Like it helps you. Yeah. I love that as well. Yeah. The last week or so, I definitely, couple weeks maybe, I've just been super caught up in like comparison trap of scrolling and continuously viewing other people's lives, other people's content, and comparing myself. And I'm definitely like aware of it now, and I'm kind of grasped it and been able to get that under control. But that just shows like how quickly and how easily like you can feel so behind at whatever age. I do think specifically for like early 20s, like recent post grads, it's just so much all at once. Like I feel like I just was dropped into this pool of all these people like hustling and bustling and doing all these things and sharing their lives. But then at the same time, there's like so many other people like myself still figuring it out. Some people who aren't doing anything. And I don't know, you kind of go from this small bubble of college. Everyone's on similar paths to just like the big pool of the world. And like, that's it. There's nowhere else out after that. Like this is it. We're here now. And obviously, there's levels to it and life will progress, but kind of maneuvering that big pool of water is like really scary and daunting. And I definitely latched on to trying to gain quote unquote inspiration from others of how to live life, what career paths to do. But it so quickly turns into just like comparison and comparing what they have to what I don't have and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my biggest piece of advice from this is just to try to recognize when you're comparing your life to others, and especially on social media, Instagram, TikTok, like these short form content places, it's a snapshot. Like it really is. They're choosing these 30 seconds of their day to show you, unless they're literally recording everything they do, which I don't think every creator is. You can't compare yourself to that because they're curating that video, they're editing it, they're choosing that to post and not other parts of their life. So I really try to keep that in mind, and it helps with the comparison, but it also just helps in not feeling behind, because it kind of helps me remind myself, like, I'm on my own journey. They're doing that. Yeah, they decided to share that, which is cool for them. Great. But I'm also on my own path, and I can't hold on to it too much.
Yeah, I feel like that's where, I mean, this is like what I was talking about, my thorn, less screen time. I feel like that is like a major trigger for all of that, because you're just flooded with so many different kinds of people doing like amazing things that you're like, why am I not doing that? I could be doing that. Why am I not?
Yep.
But I think really just reminding yourself, like you said, that like, this is my journey and it looks different from everyone else's is so huge. And also for me, zooming out and being like, okay, I'm so young. Like, I act like I'm so old. I act like I'm grown. I'm still on my parents' health insurance. Like, I need to relax. I'm like, I'm 24. Like, that's baby. Sometimes I feel like baby. So, I feel like just remembering that is like, okay, there's still time to do everything and more. And I feel like actually one of the pros of social media, despite what we were just saying of being flooded with all this other stuff, seeing the things that are like people in their 30s being like, use your 20s to like have fun, to just explore, do you, like discover yourself, rediscover yourself, like do it again kind of thing. And I feel like that can be really helpful to be like, okay, there's so much time. Like, I haven't even like hit 25. Like, what am I rushing for? Kind of thing is really helpful for me. So, but it is hard once you get caught in the loop, because first of all, to be aware of it is one thing, and then to pull yourself out of it is another thing.
Exactly.
So it is hard.
No, I guess we're saying that we know how hard it is, but just it's a constant work in progress, like everything. And you're talking about that reminded me of a conversation I actually had with one of my colleagues, and he's 30 years old. And we were literally like having the same conversation of feeling rushed into things, comparing themselves, like, and, you know, him and his partner, they're comparing themselves to other people in their 30s. And I was saying, oh, I do the same thing. I'm comparing myself to like other 23-year-olds in New York and whatever else they're doing. So that just really put things into perspectives, that like whatever stage of life, like these thoughts come up. As much as that may sound kind of pessimistic of like, oh, you're never going to not feel behind, it just shows instead like that you can reframe it and think you don't need to feel behind, because everyone's always doing different things at every stage of life, like, you know, at every age. And it doesn't mean you should be fearful of getting old and, you know, resent that you didn't do certain things at a certain time. Because I don't know. I feel like I'm talking in circles with this point,
I know
but
exactly
you know what I'm saying?
I'm so locked in right now.
Okay.
Exactly
I think I got a little confused in my wording, but basically like, not to fear getting older, because everyone's figuring it out, whatever age they are. Like, I look up to this colleague. He's 30. He's worked in this and made success for himself, but he still has these doubts too. And it's like, oh, well, I saw him as so put together and, you know, solid in his journey, but he's even doubting himself too. So like, that's just a normal part of the process. And it's not something to like judge yourself on. You know?
100%. No. And I feel like there's definitely people that like maybe are younger than us that are like, well, what are they talking about? Like they have that, like it's just, it applies to anyone. It's just all about the perspective like that. So I totally relate. And I feel like everyone is just doing, I compare my like day 2 to someone's day 700. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, why am I not there? Because they maybe started like 5 years before me, like exactly the same age. Like so many things to consider like that I just, you know, I'm not aware of at first. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should just chill for a sec and remind myself that like everyone's different.
That's I think the bottom line is just reminding yourself you are your own person and this is your life. Like it's you are the one dictating like how you live each day, what you do each day, what you decide to bring in, who you decide to hang out with. And I don't know, I definitely find that extremely overwhelming at times, because when I put that weight just on myself, it's a lot easier to put the weight on other things, be like, oh, like this made me get here, this person did me wrong, so like I don't like that. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like externalizing what happens in your life, which to an extent, like, yes, you don't have control over everything, and there are going to be always external influences on your life that you can't control. But what you can control is how you react and like how you decide to maneuver those situations. And that will always be uniquely your response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're never going to have the exact same response or reaction as anyone else in the world, because you're your own person with your own unique brain and unique values and stuff like that. And I think just, I don't know, every day I try to remind myself that that's a good thing and that's a special thing and that's a unique thing about me and it's a positive thing, not something negative.
I really appreciate you saying that you have to like make yourself remember it, because I feel like our brains are like so naturally wired to focus on like, what do I not have? What am I not doing? What am I missing? Like the negatives rather than like the positives or potential positives. So it's definitely like a force at first, but then I feel like repeating it over and over again just helps your mindset like be that way naturally.
Yeah. And like anything, it just helps build a habit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what I get also frustrated with, kind of on topic, kind of off topic, but so many people, if they've like worked on themselves for 5 years before me, they're going to have habits and have parts of their daily routine that's just part of their natural day now. And it's if it's something that I maybe just last week started trying to do, of course I'm not going to be able to do it as well as them or have it flow as naturally as them, because like you said before, they've been working on it 5 years before me. So, you know, in those senses, just really not letting myself compare and taking that first step to try to recognize when you're comparing and then act on reframing your own mindsets to remind yourself that your life is cool just the way it is for you, you know?
Oh, I love that. Like, your life is cool.
My life is cool.
It is cool. So is mine.
Yours is cool. Mine's cool.
I feel
and
like
it's cool that they're different.
It is cool that it's very cool that they're different. I think also something that you just said, I don't remember exactly what, but just made me think of this. Like when you are maybe like doom scrolling and you start to compare, I feel like something that I never used to ask myself, but now I'm starting to, I'm not like a pro at this, but is like, well, do I really want that? Like, do I really like if I see someone who's doing something really cool, I'm like, that looks so cool. I want to do that. But then I'm like, well, if I was really in that situation, do I want that? Like, what else does that come with?
Right.
Like, is that even something I want?
Do I want it because it's right in front of me and this person's doing it? Or like, do I genuinely
like want that lifestyle or whatever?
Yes. Oh my God. I love that you brought that up.
It's just like, cause I never ask that.
Yeah.
I've never, like, I just assume that I do.
And I feel like this might be wrong, but I feel like for our generation, that's like a new concept because we're able to see millions of people's lives in front of us. Whereas like my mom growing up, like she just, unless she like called someone or wrote them a letter, she didn't know what they were doing in their life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was just obviously not belittling the experience of, you know, young people in the 80s, but maybe they didn't have to deal with as much comparison or, you know, the same.
Not in their face.
Yeah. Not in their face every single day. And so I feel like we do genuinely have to take that step after we see something to be like, is this just in front of me right now and telling me I should have this and convincing me with its marketing strategy?
Yes.
Or do I genuinely like want this in my lifestyle? And I don't know, this kind of reminds me of something when I worked at Brandy Melville. Every clothing piece that came like new in shipment, all the girls would be like excited about like buying it, and we'd like put stuff aside to like buy it for later. And eventually I got to a point where I had to just keep asking myself, like, is it new or is it cute?
Yeah. Do I actually like
do I actually like this, or is it just new?
Yeah.
Like, is it just a new thing? And I feel like that applies to so many things in life. Like, is it just a new product at Sephora? Is it just a new trend on TikTok? Like, is it all these, like, and a lot of it will always all be new, but it's like, do they actually resonate with you? And that's like the key, is kind of recognizing your own values and your own morals in life to know whether those things align with yourself.
Yeah. It just comes down to like blocking out the noise or like knowing what is noise.
Yeah, exactly.
What's actually like your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. It's hard though.
It is hard. It's tough out here, but we're navigating together.
Yes, we are. All right. With that, I think we're going to wrap up the episode. Yay. Thank you so much for being here today. I have loved our conversations. I love our conversations on and off the podcast.
Me
and
too.
Hopefully we can do some more.
Please.
We can maybe even do like dive into certain topics that we touched on today, because I feel like, I don't know, we just bounce ideas off each other so smoothly.
No, it's like really nice to find someone that you're like, okay, I can talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can talk right now for hours and hours. So I'm definitely like so glad that you had me on. Thank you.
Of course.
Love our combos too. And I can't wait to come back. I'll just come knock in and be like, hey, let's record today.
Come on the couch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again. And thank you all for tuning in today to this episode with Isabel. Make sure to follow her on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can also follow this podcast on its own Instagram, and then my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube. All the links will be down in the description below. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next episode.